Let's finish off 2022 with a bang. First, we'd like to thank everyone as a record number of you took advantage of our Thanksgiving 7-day special. We hope you enjoyed the convenience of getting your favorite handicappers plays daily during the hectic holiday weekend. And we also know that December can be a frenzied month with the holidays and all the sports in play. In the spirit of the season and due to the success of the Thanksgiving special, we are now offering a rest of the calendar year special to get every NFL, college bowl game, NBA, NHL, or any other sport your favorite handicapper releases through December 31st for only $1.99. The early bird really does catch the worm for this special as it starts the day you sign up. No coupon is needed and you pay only $1.99 today or pay $1.99 in a few days. The choice is simple. Let's have a great ending to 2022.
Welcome into the NBA Tip-Off Show here at WagerTalk TV. I'm Megan Payton, filling in for the great Joe Raineri. We've got a great panel of guests here today. We've got Ralph Michaels, we've got Tony Mejia, and we've got Ronald Kabang. We appreciate you guys coming on. A little bit of a small slate today, 4 games here in the NBA. Yesterday was pretty nuts. How about the contrarian gods? They were right again. The Knicks come up with a big overtime win against the Bulls. Pacers took down Steph Curry and the Warriors. Bigger news, though, for Golden State is Steph Curry left that game with a shoulder injury. He's getting an MRI today. That's big implications potentially for the Warriors. Jokic, 43 points in their win against the Wizards. But today we've got 4 games. We've got the Heat and the Rockets. We've got Bucks, Grizzlies. We've got Pelicans, Jazz, and Suns, Clippers. Before we break down all those games and give you guys our best bets, let's start with Ralph. What's going on? What do you have for us? I hear you've got maybe a good college bowl special that you need to promo. What's going on?
Bulls start tomorrow. They start at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. So what a great start to the bowl season. I get to wake up in Vegas and have a game starting at 8:30 in the morning. Any capper at Wager Talker Sports Memo, their bowl package is 149. Dave Koken and I have been number 1 and number 2 the last 5 years in bowls, 67% and 68% respectively. If you go to his page or my page, you'll get both of our entire bowl seasons for $199, under $100 each, no coupon needed.
Tony Mejia, what about you? I was just on with you yesterday. You were talking NFL. Now you're on NBA. I feel like you're all over the place. What's going on for you here at Wager Talk?
Yeah, I mean, we just did the college basketball show too with a very small card with only 3 main board games. So just doing prep work on bowls and NBA. There's a 4-game card that is very puzzling tonight, and obviously we got an NFL game tonight. I do have a package up for that already. So yeah, very busy as always. World Cup final on Sunday. That'll be interesting. But always a pleasure to be on with you and Ralph and Ronald.
Ronald, you've got your Seahawks shirt on today. You said you might be going over to the game later tonight. I know this is the NBA show, but what's going on? You do great stuff over at Sports Memo. What do you have for us today?
Yeah, 3 games on the board for me in the NBA. Really, the NBA season has been up and down. It hit a wall in the last couple of weeks, but now seeing the board really well in December. Especially the totals, I've really been seeing the totals really well. My last 11 totals, I've hit 10 of them. So hopefully continue to go in that direction. Like you said, I'm going to the Seahawks game tonight. Really excited for that one. It's going to be exciting.
Fun stuff. Seahawks need that win big. They take on the Niners. That is NFL, though. This
Yeah.
is NBA. Our first game of the night is the Milwaukee Bucks. They are going to be in Memphis taking on the Grizzlies. Grizzlies are a 2.5-point favorite. The total is at 226.5. Bucks right now, 20-7. They're just 2 games behind the Celtics in the East. Grizzlies not too far behind, though, 18 wins. Here's the big thing with the Grizzlies. They're 12-2 at home. I mean, is that enough just to say I'm going to take Memphis here? they're in a 6-game win streak right now. These are two teams that are playing great basketball, but the Grizzlies are a little bit hotter. So, Ronald, let's just come back to you quickly. What are you thinking for Memphis, Milwaukee?
Yeah, this one I feel like there's a couple things to look at, especially from both the Bucks on the road and the Grizzlies at home. You mentioned how well the Grizzlies do at home, right? 12-2 straight up, 10-3-1 against the spread at home. Their defensive rating at home is number one in the league so far this season. And if you look at the Bucks on the road, they're actually number one defensively on the road this season, but dead last in the offensive rating on the road. So kind of the opposites here for the Bucks, dead last offensive rating, but best defensive rating. So that leads me to sort of like a strong look towards the under here. If you just look at the Bucks under games, 10-1 to the under on the road, 2-0 to the under as dogs. They're not dogs often this season. Today they are. It's moved from what plus 1.5 to 2.5 more recently. Another thing too, they're less rested than their opponents. They're 6-2 to the under in that spot as well. One thing that I looked at during the early part of the season as road dogs this season, the Bucks have failed to score over 100 points in both of those games. They only scored 90 to the Sixers earlier this season. Then they scored 93 against the Spurs. The one thing to note about that game against the Spurs, though, they didn't have their big three. No Giannis, no Drew, no Middleton. So that's one thing to know about that game. But other than that, really, the Grizzlies have been strong at home, like I mentioned, 12-2 straight up, 10-3-1 against the spread. They're only allowing 106.3 points per game at home versus 117.5 on the road. So to me, a lot of things are pointing towards the Grizzlies in this one and also to the under. Those would be the two ways that I look at this game.
Ralph, both the Grizzlies and the Bucks are 8-2 of their last 10. John Morant back in the lineup. Giannis is going to be out there. This is a star-powered game. What are you looking at for Bucks versus Grizzlies?
Well, Megan, and I'm going to reach out to Robert as well, our producer. Do not put me on the show with Ronald Kabang anymore. I'm always excited to throw out stats, but Ron's such a database guy too. You know, I start marking off all the crap that he's going through that I can't stand anymore. So no more Ron or Megan. You have to go to me first. So I'm in front of Ron, and he has to scratch off. Good job, Ron. I'm gonna just back up a couple things he said. You know, having a defense that leads the NBA or top 5 in scoring is one thing. But you look at what Memphis does, it's almost at a historical pace. Their last 4 opponents have shot 39.2%, 37%, 40%, and 35.6%. There's not many times you can go through an NBA season and a team has held 4 straight opponents to 40% or less. And just to add to the under, I went to the database as Ronald was talking. Since 2014, when you have 2 teams at a win percentage over 60%, and one of those teams is a home favorite, and we're looking from game number 20 on. So you can't be 1-0 or 2-0 early in the season. You're a legitimate winning team, 60% or higher, after 20 games in the season. You are 87 and 141 over under. That's 62.8%. So it makes sense. A meaningful team. You know you have a shot to meet in the playoffs. You have respect for star players. And what happens? You do play defense. Those games, by the way, have gone under by over 6 points per game.
94% of the money tonight is on the under, so it sounds like we're leaning in the right direction. Tony, are we riding with the under? What do you think?
I think it hinges on foul trouble. If Jaren Jackson Jr. can stay on the floor, the Memphis defense is so much better when he's out there as one of a defensive player of the year candidate, an elite shot blocker, somebody that really changes the game on that end. And then when you throw him out there with Steven Adams, I mean, that really creates issues for opposing offenses. But Giannis is, a cheat code. So from that standpoint, they don't see Giannis very often. If he's able to get into the paint, get those guys into foul trouble, get the Grizzlies into the bonus or out early, then I think that there's a chance that we could get a big free throw game, which blows up unders, obviously. But yeah, I think not having Drew Holiday obviously hurts the Bucks. He's still dealing with an illness. Didn't hurt him the other night against Golden State, but a little bit of a paper tiger type feel for Memphis of late, even with this 6-game winning streak. They've beaten some really bad teams. They beat the Thunder once. They beat the Pistons twice. They beat the depleted Hawks. So I'm very curious to see how they handle things at home, where FedEx Forum doesn't offer a tremendous advantage against an elite team. Even with Holiday gone, they'll plug in a couple of guys, Grayson Allen and Juwan Carter, and they'll try to get this done. Big showcase for John Morant as well, and life easier for him without Drew Holiday defending him.
Yeah, the Bucks still, we have to remember, have the second best odds to win the East. It's hard to discredit them completely. Granted, Memphis, you've got to give them credit here. One player prop that I'm actually going to eye is Chris Middleton over 18 and a half points. He had a great game, 20 points in his last game. I mean, this one has been one that I've taken a few times. It's done well, but nonetheless, that's Bucks Grizzlies tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. We're moving on, though. We've got our Miami Heat game. They are in Houston taking on the Rockets. We've got 3.5 on Miami, the total at 217.5, 218 now it looks like. This one has been kind of interesting to eye. The line opened at 4.5, and there was some sports book that had it all the way up to Miami 5. To me, this is a hard one. I mean, the Rockets, I know they're not a good team, but they got a little bit of momentum going on right now. Ronald, I'm going to come to you first. Do we take them into consideration for this game, given the fact that they just recently beat the Bucks? They beat the Suns. These are two powerhouse teams in the NBA. Granted, say whatever you want about the Suns and their slump right now. Are we going to give Houston some credit in this one?
Yeah, I don't know if this one's going to make my card, but like you mentioned, I think momentum wise, both of these teams are going in the wrong direction, or in the opposite direction, should I say. The Heat, they failed to cover in 5 of their last 6, and really it could have been all 6 games that they failed to cover, but Hallie, for some reason, decided to play his worst game ever the other day. I think he only scored 1 point that game. This is a bad travel spot as well, right? Third game of a 4-game road trip, second leg of back-to-back games, third game in 4 nights. A lot of things that kind of goes against the Heat here. And when I looked at the, Ralph mentioned the database here, 1-4 ATS on the second leg of back-to-back games for the Heat here. It's just really, to me, a bad spot. And on the Rockets side, they have momentum on their side, and they've been playing really well at home. Specifically, I was looking at their net rating at home versus on the road, plus 0.6 at home versus minus or a negative 9.4 on the road. And if we look at their defenses, where it's really happening for between the two road and versus home splits. So, and if we see Lowry is out, right? Lowry's out. There's a whole bunch of injury stuff on this Miami team, and really Miami and another team that's playing tonight, the Clippers, they're the 2 worst teams to work with as far as the injury report. So at times you don't know who's playing and or who's going to be out, regardless of what they have early on in the day in the injury report. So for me, I would lean towards the Rockets. I think they got momentum on their side. This is a bad spot on the Miami team for travel wise, and also just based on their schedule. And also a lean towards the under here. I think the Rockets have been playing a lot better defense, and if Miami struggles offensively in this bad travel spot, that would lead towards the under. But I don't think this is going to make my card. There's way too many question marks as far as who is in and out for this Miami team. But yeah, those would be my leans here.
I'd agree, Ronald. To me, we can't really make any plays till we know about Jimmy Butler's status. Miami on the second leg of their back-to-back. Butler dealing with a right knee injury. I'm reading he's probable, though. So, Ralph, does Butler's status determine any way that you handicap this one out there in Houston?
No, I am back in Houston. Didn't quite make my card, but I don't know. Robert, our producer, you hear us rip on him from Houston. Well, let me tell you, that Houston squad, 6-0 straight up, 5-1 ATS, 6-0 ATS their last 6 home games. They are playing good ball, not decent ball. They're playing good ball at home. You got a couple go-to scorers now. Porter and Jalen Green. Rod had mentioned that Miami is 1-4, second of back-to-backs. Just so you don't take too much into that, the league this year playing back-to-back road games is actually 50% ATS. But you have 10 players listed on Miami's injury report. Lowry is just resting, so he is not hurt. but the second to back, he's not going to play. Jimmy Butler is going to play, but he's on a load management, so you're not going to expect him to get a lot of minutes. Remember, they were up big yesterday. They had to fight back. They had to make a 15-6 run to win last night. I think it might have been different. I think if Miami had lost yesterday, then perhaps you play these guys more. But going on the road trip and splitting, that's all you want to do on these second to back-to-backs. I am impressed with Robert's Houston Rockets, and I clearly am on their side tonight.
Yeah, if you can hold Giannis down, a player that can score well over 31 points a game, you got to be in the talks. You got to give some credit them. Tony, these are two teams that we rarely get to see play, East and West. First matchup for them of the season. Do you have anything that you're looking at for tonight?
Well, I'm not touching this game at all, except for my best bet, which might end up being a client play, and that's a prop. But the Rockets are in a great spot in this position with the Heat coming in banged up and on the road for a minute. But I never trust the Rockets as far as I can throw them, and I'm a big guy, but I can't throw an entire team very easily. And so Miami, I think Jimmy Butler does play, but Bam Adebayo is the biggest question mark to me because he legitimately is on this injury report as questionable. Sometimes Eric Spoelstra plays with this thing and just throws everybody on there just to adhere to the NBA's rules on this because he's been fined before. But the fact that you don't have Lowry and you don't have Gabe Vincent, his primary backup, means you're looking for other sources for points of entry on the offense. So they'll ride Jimmy Butler and Tyler Hero on that. But not having Adebayo as a pick and roll partner earlier in the season, he was the primary finisher in the entire league on pick and rolls and dives to the rim. Not to mention what he does in terms of rim protection. Really makes this a no-touch spot for Miami. But again, Houston, a very streaky team. And interesting to note, Jabari Smith Jr., who's been shooting the ball well for them, their first-round pick this season, he popped up on the most recent injury report with an illness as questionable. So they've long had Jayshawn Tate on it, but it was interesting to see Smith on that, and he would be a key piece out if he doesn't make it. And obviously, it's flu season and whatnot, so I assume that's legitimate. But yeah, I mean, look, the Rockets are playing their best ball of the season. I'll give them props on that. They've beaten the Sixers, Bucks, and Suns at home. Might add the Heat to the list on that, but I will not be part of backing that.
I love to manipulate stats here, but this one's fun to me. Miami 27th in rebounds. Meanwhile, the Rockets are first in offensive rebound. How that matchup goes, but I like that there. We're shying away from this game for the most part, it sounds like, but I've got a fun one coming up. It's the New Orleans Pelicans, who I love, versus the Utah Jazz. The tip-off is at 9 p.m. Eastern. Pelicans are a 1-point favorite. Jazz is 8th right now in the Western Conference. The Pelicans are top. Total right now, 232 is what we're seeing this game at. The key here is the Pelicans bouncing back. The Jazz just completely ruined the fun for New Orleans. They broke their 7-game win streak in a big win, big fashion too. The Pelicans were ice cold from 3, 4 of 27. They also struggled at the line. Brandon Ingram, a little bit of a setback for him with that toe injury. A lot of pressure on Zion here. I'm looking at New Orleans to bounce back a little bit, and I'm also going to eye the player prop market. But Ralph, we're coming to you first. Sorry, Ronald, you're going to be last this round. Go ahead and tell me what you're looking at for Pelicans Jazz.
Well, I lean the Pelicans, and I like the under. You look at the teams, and I pulled up the database this year. When someone's an away favorite and they're playing back-to-back opponents, which we've seen more in the NBA this year, the team that lost that first game has covered 57.1%. And do the stats back that up? Well, they do. You talked about New Orleans having been on a hot streak. Their previous 4 games, they shot 50.6%, 46%, 51.1%, and 58.1%. What happens? They shot 39.8%. That's the lowest, I believe, this year. Going back to at least to November 5th, it's the lowest, but they shot their lowest percentage since that point. You look at the Utah defense, they've been struggling. They allowed 48.2, 46, 53, and 54.7. As I said, they held Utah to under 40%. So in that turnaround, with the anomaly performances for the New Orleans offense and the Utah defense, I do lean with them. And I do have one system I want to share with you. When you're playing an opponent within a 7-day period, and the previous game went under, they scored 231 last night. The total was 232, so it just snuck under. And the total is less than yesterday's total. That has occurred, and the teams have gone under over 60% of the time. So you're playing someone twice. It went under the total. It's not the playoffs, and you're playing them within the week. They're playing them back-to-back days. That's been an underplay for the system. So 2 opinions, New Orleans and the under here.
The money's pretty much evenly split for Pelicans and Jazz. Ronald, what are you thinking for Pelicans Jazz? Something that you're going to mess with, or are you going to shy away from this one?
I agree with Ralph on the under here. A lot of things are pointing in that direction. If we look at the Pelicans following a loss, they are 6-2 to the under. You mentioned a good point, Megan. They do bounce back pretty strong off these losses, 7-1 straight up, 5-3 against the spread. The one thing that I did notice is they are different on the road versus at home. Their net rating is plus 6.6. Is 6.6 points worse on the road than it is at home. They score less points. They give up more points. And one thing that I actually looked at specifically in this matchup is the first half. In both first halves, in their 2 previous matchups, the Pelicans did go under their team total in the first half. The first game that they matched up earlier in their season, they did go over the full game because it went into overtime. But if we're just focusing on this first half, the Pelicans didn't go over in both of them. And the more things to talk about with the Pelicans as road favorites, they averaged 53.1 points per game in the first half, but they score 63.7 in the second half. So they're coming off strong after the break in these games as road favorites. And for me, I looked at the other side with the Jazz here as home dogs. And home dogs, they're allowing 53.8 in the first half, but allowing 60 in the second half. So in both of these here, the game flow wise is following the same trend, where the Pelicans, right, the road team is scoring less in the first half than they are in the second half. The team total for the Pelicans in the first half is 57 points. And a lot of things are pointing to the Pelicans not going over that one. So I would think game under as well would be a great play. That's one way that I was looking at as well. The Jazz are 3-0 to the under when they face a team that they've already beat at home and they're well rested. So a lot of things are pointing to the full game under. A lot of things are pointing to the Pelicans under team total first half. That doesn't necessarily mean they don't cover, but we're just really focusing on how much they're going to be scoring in this game.
Yeah, a lot of pressure on Zion Williamson, who's averaging 30 points in December. His prop market right now, 28.5. I like the over here. The reason we didn't see this hit last time was mostly due to the fact that it was a blowout. And this is where short lines kind of make the player prop market a little bit more juicier, makes it a little bit easier to grab. So I'm going to take the over on Zion's points tonight. Tony, are you eyeing anything for Pelicans Jazz?
I mean, this would be a good zigzag spot considering how poorly the Pelicans played the other night. They were outscored 62-41 in the second and third quarters. That was basically the margin of victory, a 121-100 loss. But they were really outplayed. 3 Utah players had double-doubles. Walker Kessler's playing tremendous basketball, the rookie out of Auburn, off the bench. He's been a spark plug. Nickeil Alexander-Walker was really effective the other night. You know, when those guys play well, I mean, it takes the pressure off of the starting lineup. And Lauri Markkanen, you know, has been consistent all season. He also had a very good game. Jared Vanderbilt, I think in 23 minutes, he had 18-6. So, I mean, that's highly efficient. Can they duplicate that? You know, we'll have to see. And I would imagine that at this point, the fact that New Orleans had a really poor shooting game with C.J. McCollum shooting the ball extremely terribly, 6 for 17, I believe. And Trey Murphy, 0 for 7. You know that watching the Pelicans, he's been a spark plug and consistent as a shooter for most of this season. So I would expect a bounce back from New Orleans. No opinion on the total, just because I think in this spot, New Orleans, the fact they shot the ball so poorly, I think that Utah can be so efficient scoring the ball, you know, and the familiarity. I think that would lead 2 and over. But again, I don't want to mess with all the shot blocking and size in this matchup.
That's Pelicans Jazz, 9 p.m. tip-off. All right, we got to get through this last game, and then we've got our best bets. So we're looking at Phoenix Suns at Los Angeles taking on the Clippers. Clippers are looks like they're now, Phoenix is a 3.5-point favorite. Line has been shifting a little bit. I saw Clippers minus 1.5 earlier. This has been a hard one to handicap. Totals at 217.5. The Suns can't get anything going. They have no life right now. They've lost 5 in a row. We're expected to see Devin Booker back, who's dealing with a hamstring injury. The Clippers are the healthiest that we've seen them so far. Paul George expected to be in the lineup. We're probably not going to see Kawhi Leonard because he has not played in any back-to-back this season. He's probably going to take the night off. Let's start with you, Tony. Let's come right back to you. What do you think for Phoenix, LA?
Yeah, I think the best bet in this game is that we won't see Kawhi Leonard, considering he played a season-high minute. And I appreciate that because he delivered on my 5% last night with a big fourth quarter after stinking it up for the first 3. And yeah, the Clippers really won that game last night on the strength of their fourth quarter. And the fact that they were able to wear down a completely shorthanded Minnesota Timberwolves squad. Now they come back to try to take on a Suns squad that has been terrible of late. You mentioned it in the intro. They've actually dropped, 5 straight up and against the spread. They've been lifeless, as you mentioned. Chris Paul has been back in the lineup, but they've been missing Devin Booker. DeAndre Ayton got hurt in the last game. So this is really a depleted bunch. But again, this is a no-touch game for me, unless I know for sure that Ayton and Booker are good to go, because, at this point, I know I'm going to get Paul George leading the fairly deep Clipper squad, but I know I won't get Kawhi. John Wall, I assume will play, but who knows? And then we've had Reggie Jackson be really spotty and limited. Terrence Mann hasn't shot the ball well. Robert Covington didn't shoot the ball well last night. So the under might be a play here, I guess, if the Suns lock in on defense after some embarrassing performances. I mean, a 111-97 loss to the Rockets most recently. That was rock bottom, I think, for them, because they had lost to some pretty good teams on this losing streak, the Mavs, the Celtics, the Pelicans twice. Then you lose at the Rockets in a game you were really never in. And then Chris Paul coming back to Houston and really not being able to pick up the slack. So I think it is a no touch on the side. If you want to play the under, I wouldn't talk you off it.
Yeah, this game opened with Clippers minus 1.5, and it's just as of now minus 5.5 Phoenix. Ralph, what do you think for this one?
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see Booker or Ayton. I actually bought into the Phoenix, their first of 2 against New Orleans, because that was when they came back, and that was the second game for Paul, and I figured he had a game under their belt, and so they went to the situation. So what happens? They lose back-to-back games to New Orleans. They allowed 51 and 58% shooting. Then you go play Houston. Yeah, your defense held to 42%, but you shot 32%. I don't think the Phoenix Suns have shot 32% in 5 years. So now you're playing your 5th straight road game, your 7th road game in 8. You don't have your situational players to get into a groove or a rhythm. Your offense, again, you shot 46% 2 games ago. You shot 32% the other. I lean under. I have a system. I'm going to use it as my best bet. I'll share the system in the best bet segment.
Yeah, this game's a little bit of a mess, honestly. We're still trying to figure out who's in, who's out. But right now, 67% of the tickets on Phoenix and 77% of the money on the Suns. Ronald, are you shying away from Suns Clippers?
Yeah, this one's a tough one. I mean, just real quick, an update for the guys here. Paul George and Kawhi are out. Reggie Jackson is out as well. Ayton is out as well. Booker is available to play. So a lot of the reason why the line has shifted so much is just because PG and Kawhi are both out, as well as Reggie Jackson. So a lot of that offense is gone, but as well as their defense. So in Ayton really being out for the Suns here, that could mean that and Booker in could mean that they push the pace a little bit. So I'm going to be off of this game completely. A lot of things have been real tricky when we take into account injuries in games recently, especially when there's a lot of line shifting within those games. But for me, I don't, with all these current players out, I don't see any defense really on either side. Even though they're taking some offense out, I don't see any defense at all. I can see a faster pace as well, right? Another thing too is Zubac is also questionable. I mean, if you're not going to play your whole starting lineup, might as well just take Zubac out. I don't know what's going to happen. Like we mentioned earlier, Miami and the Clippers, they're both the worst teams to deal with as far as injury reports. So I'm going to stay away from this one. But I can't see why anyone would really touch this one at this current moment.
Yeah, Zubac's left last night's game with a knee thing, and he was looking stiff before that. So I assume that's legitimate as well. I mean, it's looking like bare bones for the Clippers, where you're relying on guys like Covington and Mann to guard your better players, and John Wall. I didn't hear you mention him, so I assume he sat yesterday to be the catalyst today. So hey, maybe you can get in on John Wall props.
The one thing to add to that, Tony, is the last few games where we've seen a whole starting lineup come out. They end up winning that game. You can see that the Nets the other day, right? The whole starting lineup was out, and they ended up winning that game outright. So it's one of those games where, you kind of just don't want to mess with it.
Agreed.
Maybe it looks similar to the October game where the Suns won 112-95. Not what I would have thought entering this day, but that's what happens in the NBA. You really got to look closely at this one, maybe wait as long as possible to get in on some action. It is time now for the best part of the show. I cannot wait. We are now going to do our best bets segment. All right, you guys are all familiar with the rules. You got 60 seconds on the clock. Do whatever you want. Give us a bet. Say whatever. I don't care. Just get in, get out in 1 minute. Ralph, we're coming to you. What is your best bet for Thursday, December 15th?
Well, the Clippers. I'm going to go back to the Clippers game and go under the total. This LA Clippers at home, they haven't had their starting lineup in there for many games. So it's not like this is a huge shock with both of them not playing. But they are 2-13 over under at home. That's 86.7% to the under. And not only are they 2-13 over under at home, if you look at all 15 home games, they've averaged 209.9 points per game with an average total of 220.6. So you are 10.7 points per game under the total. Ronald talks about trends and I talk about trends, but what people don't realize, there's a strength of trends when you're failing to cover by a certain amount. Also, when teams are off a loss as a home favorite of 3 or more, and they're on the road again as a favorite or a dog up to 4, it's gone under 64.1%. Give me under Suns Clippers.
Great stuff. All right, rumor has it that Tony has an over for a player prop. Is that true, Mejia? What do you got for us?
I do. I'm going to go to that Rockets and Heat game. We're going to see Duncan Robinson. We're going to see Max Strus, but neither of those guys are, catalysts on the offensive end. So it really, and I don't think we'll see Adebayo. So it really has to go. The offense has to run through Jimmy Butler and Tyler Hero. And I actually think it might be worth a sprinkle. Jimmy Butler to hit a triple-double at plus 1,800. His PRA is 34.5. I kind of like that. But I'll go with Tyler Hero coming off 9 3-pointers made yesterday. That's a career best, obviously. And he's been playing really well for most of the month. I think he'll take on more of a point guard role in this one. But yeah, he scored 35 points yesterday. His points and assists number today is 28.5. I think he'll score less, obviously, but he'll have more assists. He's had a couple of 6-assist games this month. Give me over on points and assists for Tyler Hero.
Tyler Hero to have a big game. Great stuff from both Tony and Ralph. Let's end it out with Ronald. It's time for your best bet. You got 60 seconds on the clock. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to this Bucks and Grizzlies game. I like the Grizzlies here minus the 2. The Bucks, they're in a really bad travel spot, and I think that travel fatigue is going to start to kick in. This is the 9th straight game with travel. So even when they go home, they're actually going on the road again the next game. So that's one way that I was looking at it. And also just the difference between how the Grizzlies play at home versus how the Bucks play on the road. We know that the Bucks struggle offensively, the worst offensive rated team in the league. On the road, they only average 105 points per game. on the road, while the Grizzlies are the best defensive team at home. They only allow 106 points per game on the road, while allowing 106.3 at home versus 117 on the road. From a trends perspective, 12-2 straight up, 10-3 and 1 ATS at home. They also do well against non-conference opponents. 8-1 straight up, 6-2-1 against the spread there. So give me the Grizzlies, and also make sure you watch Sports Memo Triple Double Show Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Awesome stuff from from Ronald, Ralph, and Tony. We appreciate you guys here on the NBA Tip-Off Show. We've got Ralph is taking the under for 216.5 for Phoenix and LA. Tony Mejia, Tyler Hero over 28.5 points and assists. And Ronald's got Memphis -2.5. And I'm going to throw on that Chris Middleton over 18.5 points tonight. This is going to be a fun slate of games. It's short, but we've got some fun ones. I appreciate all of you. Ralph, go give him a follow over on Twitter at CalSportsLV. Tony Mejia, he is at Mejia Dinero. And Ronald Kabang at @U_Capper. We've got more stuff as always here on WagerTalk TV. Go make sure you guys are on the YouTube channel. Download the WagerTalk TV app if you have not. Thank you all. Enjoy your Thursday and have fun at the Seahawks game, Ronald.
Yeah, let's get that win.
Right? All right. Thank you, guys. Come back to us tomorrow for the NBA Tip-Off Show.
Let's finish off 2022 with a bang. First, we'd like to thank everyone as a record number of you took advantage of our Thanksgiving 7-day special. We hope you enjoyed the convenience of getting your favorite handicappers plays daily during the hectic holiday weekend. And we also know that December can be a frenzied month with the holidays and all the sports in play. In the spirit of the season and due to the success of the Thanksgiving special, we are now offering a rest of the calendar year special to get every NFL, college bowl game, NBA, NHL, or any other sport your favorite handicapper releases through December 31st for only $1.99. The early bird really does catch the worm for this special as it starts the day you sign up. No coupon is needed and you pay only $1.99 today or pay $1.99 in a few days. The choice is simple. Let's have a great ending to 2022.